Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So check it out. Today we're going to be reviewing the Bugs 3 from MJX RC. We're going to see how this one works. This does have brushless motors. It looks like you can put like a GoPro style camera in here. It's saying camera is not included, but you can use GoPro, SJ4000, Xiaomi, and so on. I'm not sure, I don't see any GPS indications on the box. I haven't watched anybody else's reviews yet, but maybe this is just their first brushless and they haven't incorporated GPS yet, but we'll find out here in just a second. Anyway, what this is going to be is a full unboxing, inspection, setup, and also the flight test and pros and cons. So if you want to know everything about this in one review, stay tuned because I'm going to take care of it all. We'll also have the links on this down in the description below the video, so don't forget to click on that link to check out the current pricing and also more specs if you're interested in the specs on everything more in depth. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and unbox it. So the back of the box actually just looks like this. Nothing super special, it just shows you the camera. I guess they also have an option for a couple other cameras, FPV, and some goggles. So I'm not sure if that's in this box, but we'll find out what's in it right now. Okay, so just opening the top and pulling out the box here. Looks like we just get one, styrofoam box and the manual with a few stickers here. That's all we got in the box there. And then we just pull this thing apart. Let me go ahead and cut these pieces of tape. Cut that side at least. And pull this thing open. Okay, cool. So here it is. The Bugs 3 from MJX. Let's see what we got. So we got propeller guards. Looks like these just push up right to the bottom. They got screws included in here. I'm not going to be putting these on, but if you're a beginner or you want to really protect the propellers or anything around you, be a little bit more safe, put these on. You won't get as much flight time, but you'll be a lot more safe. Here is 2 sets of propellers. So these look like they are cool. They are self-tightening, and so they do give us 2 sets, so that's great from MJX. So if you crash and damage one, you have a whole nother set. Here are the landing gear with the hardware in the package. So it looks like we're gonna have to put on each individual piece of landing gear. We'll do that in just a sec. Here's the battery. So a little bit of a proprietary caddy, but it is using the new XT30 connector, the little mini XT60 looking connector. So that's great. Just kind of peeking in to the battery, and it looks like it is labeled as an 1800 milliamp battery. I'm not seeing the voltage on it, but we'll check that in just a sec. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so they do give you another label on the side that's clearly visible. Really like how MJX is really good about labeling their batteries, even if it's a little tough to see on the main raw part of the battery. They make sure that you can see with stickers. So 7.4 volt, 1800 milliamp hour, 25C LiPo battery. It's kind of unfortunate about this little plastic caddy that's adding some weight. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I guess it's safer that way. Anyway, that's the battery. Let's see what else is in here. So here's the charger up top. And this is looks like a US plug, so great. And all it is a 2S balance plug on the charger. So nothing special here. It's kind of an all built-in, all together cheap little charger, but if it does the job, fine. Here's our GoPro camera mount. So very simple. It's just a basic GoPro camera clip-in connector here. Let's see how this thing looks. So we're going to clip it into the quad with this proprietary clip here, and it's got a little bit of a rubber dampened clip on top, kind of like I think some of their other quads had this as well. I forget which one, but it looks familiar to me. So it looks like it's just like an unclippable latch system where it's a two-way kind of clip. Throw your action cam in there and you're ready to go. You can always put a little FPV system of your own on if you have an action cam FPV system of your own. If not, then it looks like they have some options there. I think this padding actually fell out of the camera package, so they give you a few of these really thin and a little bit thicker sheets of foam just to, it looks like, stick in here if your camera's, wobbling around. You can go ahead and wedge that in to shim it up a little bit. Anyway, other bag that looks like the last bag besides the quad is this little tool bag. So we get a Phillips screwdriver, an open-ended wrench with a little notch on the other end, and then we have our control sticks with screws to screw in those thumbstick grip sticks. And the controller, there it is, over here on the bottom. So you're just going to be taking these sticks out, popping them on, and screwing them into the controller. The controller, by the way, looks like a pretty cheapy controller. I don't think, yeah, this definitely not going to have any GPS in this as far as I can see. It just looks like camera, record, take pictures, and maybe it can do some flips, and maybe a compass return to home, but doesn't look like it's any kind of a GPS quadcopter. Here's our trim buttons, and we'll go over the instructions real fast to see how that works. There is a little Phillips screw on the back, unfortunately, on the battery compartment, so you're going to have to take that off to throw your batteries in. But like all of these little quads, you can usually just snap this back in. So 4 AA batteries in the controller, and when we're putting that back in, it does snap in nice and tight, so you'll never need to really put that that screw back in there. Okay, sorry for the delay, but here is the main event. So here's the quad, the Bugs 3. Kind of interesting looking quad. No camera in the front, but there's a giant light. And I think this is what detaches, and you can put a camera on the front if you want to. You can buy one of their cameras like it showed on the edge of the box here. So if you wanted to, it looks like you could switch that out with one of those 2 cameras instead of having a light on the front. But this is the version that just has the light. And we can see how we're just going to slide our GoPro camera holder in there. And then here's the battery slot. Really simple. Just sliding the battery in there. And it's just pushing, and kind of the tension just keeps it in. There's no real clicking or anything, but the tension just keeps it from pulling out. So pretty well done. There's the XT30 input here for the battery voltage on the back. Here's the brushless motors. I'm not sure what the KV or anything is on these brushless motors. I didn't see anything on the package, but if you wanted to check out the specs on these, they'll be in the description of this video. You can click on that link and check that out. It looks like this one may have an easy to remove top cover, so let's see what this is all about. So you see how it's got these little tension clips here? So it looks like you don't even have to push those in, you just pull the top off. Really nice and easy, flexible top. Look at this. So this is great, really easy to get into. And look at that circuit board. So there's this inside the guts of the Bugs 3. So very simple. I like that. So yeah, no GPS. So this looks like this is going to be the receiver for the control antenna. Speaking of which, there's the control antenna here on the bottom. It looks like if you wanted to kind of reposition it, you can. You got a little bit of slack here. You see the slack. You can pull that. And then if you wanted to maybe, re-clip it in like that or something. Give it more of a downward angle so that the radiation of the signal will go out. If you're flying far out in front of you, do that. If you're just flying like above you, that would probably work good. And there it is. So 4 ESCs. Looks like it's easy to work on too. Nothing special. There's a big old capacitor right there. It looks like these are all going to be plug-ins for the lights, and then the motors are just directly soldered to the board here. So pretty simple. It's just a simple brushless quadcopter. And then check this out. So you want to put in a camera in the front. If you go ahead and buy one of their options, it looks to me like you just unscrew it. Yeah, there's 2 screws here on the top holding this thing in. So unscrew that, pop that out, plug in your other peripheral. It looks like this may be an extra plug for like a camera. So that looks like where you're going to plug in your options. But I kind of like that. That's cool that they're giving people the option to just pop the hood. Very simple. Look at that. So we're just pushing it back down. It clips in, and that will not come off unless somebody actually tries to grab the edges and pull this thing off. So pretty well done. Not sure if you're going to like these eyes here, but it's kind of neat. And as far as the lighting goes, check it out. So we've got just 4 lights on the bottom. We'll boot this up real fast and see what the colors are. And then we got 1 bright LED light for the front. So it looks like there is some kind of a little rubber plug here on the bottom. I just want to see what this is all about. Okay, so I just opened that up, and it looks like this would be, a portion, if you do get one of those aftermarket cameras, you can run some wiring through, or if you had like something hooked up in here from your camera you're hanging below, you have an option to route wires through there. So a little bit of an option there if you have like an FPV system. Okay, so popping in the battery and then powering on. Super simple. Slide it in like that. Push this thing all the way in until we hear it boot up. And these would be on solid if the controller had some power in it, but they're not because the controller's not on. So we've got white in the front, and I assume that's going to be green or red in the back. We'll check that out in the flight test, but there we go. Look at that front LED light, super bright. So pretty good orientation, I guess, when you're flying. We can see these from the side as well, pretty good. So looks like all direction we'll be able to see some kind of lights when viewing it in every axis. Anyway, that's what it looks like with the battery plugged in. Let me take out the battery and let's just put on these landing gear real quick. They look super simple, so I'm just going to do one with you guys, and then of course the rest are going to be self-explanatory. So you're just taking the landing gear, and it doesn't look like it matters which one you grab. You just push it on here, and then there are two screw holes there and there, and you're just screwing in the provided screws they give in this little bag with the craft. So it looks like this one may be a little tough to balance your screws and get them in, so you're going to want to kind of put the screw, looks like, on the top of your screwdriver, and then go ahead and very carefully start it and screw it in the rest of the way. So you just want to do that to all four legs, 2 screws per leg. Make sure they're in nice and tight. Okay, wow guys, so putting on these landing gear were a bit more difficult than what I would have liked. And it's only because they are like self-tapping screws and they're really hard to screw in, especially with this cheap screwdriver they give you. So I'd recommend, if you have the option of getting a better screwdriver or you have access to one, go ahead and use that instead. Just because these screws will strip really easy with a screwdriver they give you, and save yourself some frustration. But anyway, they give you 2 extra landing screws. I had 2 extra in the package, just to let you know. And what I did notice is when putting these on, actually when you pull this receiver antenna out, you can just hang this because it's so high, you can see the height of the craft, that this antenna won't touch the ground. And it may interfere with the camera a little bit if it flops back and forth, so maybe just taping this up into the leg like this. And as far as the props go, the main thing you want to look for is, you see how there's that B right there on the arm? You want to make sure that you're putting on a B labeled prop onto that arm. If you look at this prop here, it's actually got a B right on the prop there. You can see that. And that is the one you want to put on the B arm or the B motor. So go ahead and just put it on, and then these ones, the B's, are gonna go ahead and go clockwise. You just want to screw those on till they're nice and finger tight. And then same thing, but in the opposite way with the A propellers and A arms. Just want to grab an A propeller and then go ahead and screw these on counterclockwise. So pretty simple. This propeller for some reason seems like it's a little more tight going on than the B propeller, but that shouldn't be an issue. Cool, so for testing the Bugs 3 with this GoPro camera style kit, what I'm going to be using is this kind of the eye camera here, and this is like a GoPro style replica camera. Let's see if we can, yeah, so there we go. So it's a really super tight fit, but I'm just going to go ahead and use this one for the purpose of this review, just so you guys, you can see the video that this thing's capable of. Doesn't have any gimbal. It has a little vibration damper that's built in right on the top here, and that's really all you're gonna get. So kind of interesting. You can see how where it clips on, it's kind of going forward a bit there, and we'll see how much shake that is, but you can see how that little rubber grommet inside this square mechanism is kind of dampening that while it moves around. Let's get a little bit of a better shot from the front here. You see how there's some rubber dampening action going on. And then if you wanted to, you could crank down this screw that's in this hinge. It does feel like it's perfect tension though, to go ahead and turn it how you want. So I'll probably be having it pointed just a little bit down for this review flight test. Okay, so getting to the controller and the manual, we have these little top thumbsticks with these little hexes on the controller gimbals. So we just go ahead and push those on, and then the provided 2 screws in the package, just dropping those down in. Going ahead and screwing them on with the provided screwdriver so they're nice and tight. Okay, so another horrendous time with the screwdriver included and the screws they provide. Didn't seem to really be easy to put these in, and even though I screwed them in as tight as possible, you can see that there is a little bit of a space there. Should be okay, at least they won't fall out, but just to keep that in mind, go ahead and use a different screwdriver if you have one. And these screws just seem like they're way too long for this, and they bite too tight too quickly. Anyway, regardless, a little bit of a con there on putting everything together. Let's go ahead and further dive into the controller and the manual really quickly, just to make sure that I got everything set up correctly, and you can kind of see what's going on here. Of course, the left stick is going to be your altitude. It doesn't feel like this one has any altitude hold because it's not spring loaded. Your yaw and your pitch and roll on the right stick and the left stick, and then you've got all these trim buttons. So this is going to be your rate button for, you know, rate 1, rate 2 for faster flight, and then if you hold it in, it looks like that'll turn off the lights. This button over here, this red one, is going to be unlock and lock your motors, is what it looks like. So press it once to be ready to take off, and then when you land or whatever, press and hold it to lock your motors. So if you have one of the MJX cameras hooked up to this, it looks like this is where you can take your photos, and then it looks like this one is where you can do 3D flips and rolls, and which should be working in this version. We'll be testing that in the flight test. Calibrating the craft, looks like calibrating the level, like the gyros. If it's flying kind of weird and you want to level it out, put it on a level surface. Both sticks to the bottom right until you see some flashing on the craft, and that should calibrate its level. And it looks like that's basically it. The last few pages are just a bunch of extra parts and some aftermarket peripherals if you wanted to go ahead and get their provided cameras. We got a Wi-Fi camera where you can hook it up to your cell phone or whatever. We also got a 360-degree panoramic Wi-Fi camera option, MJX VR goggles, 5.8 FPV gigahertz camera, where you can go ahead and link it to a screen, and they also have a couple of screens available. Or if you wanted to use their MJX camera, you can get that as well. Cool, guys. So anyways, hope you're hanging in there, and let's go ahead and get this thing out to the park, charge everything up, and do our flight tests and the pros and cons. Okay guys, so we're at the park with the Bugs 3, MJX Bugs 3, and before I start this thing up, I just wanted to explain what I did to get this camera in and which camera I'm using. So this is the i60E camera I'm currently in review of. It's kind of a GoPro replica camera, you know, good alternative. It's got a screen on the rear LCD screen here. And I had to make some modifications for it to fit in this bracket. I had to cut a slot here, as you can see in the side here, because when I wedged it in, it would keep hitting the wireless and the zoom. I guess when you hold these up and down, they're zooming in and out for the camera. Then I also had to go ahead and drill a little hole in the top to access the start and stop recording button. And then one more thing, initially on the startup, it wasn't binding to the craft, so I went back in the instructions, and basically if you hold this green button or this red button actually, while you turn the controller on, that puts your controller into binding mode. Then you turn on the craft, and I linked up no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the controller first this time and plug in. So we're hearing the initial, you know, sync up, power up on the craft, and then we hear the controller beep, and that means this thing's ready to go. Turn the camera on here. Okay, so camera's on, and I'm just going to start recording. This is going to be 1080p, 30 frames per second. I will have this camera actually going ahead and coming up on the screen too, so you can see what this thing's like. You know, how stable it is and stuff. Anyway, cool, there we go, ready to fly. And let's go ahead and fly. So to arm the motors, what we need to do is just click in this red button. You can see how the motors arm. If you want to disarm the motors, we go ahead and hold in the red button. and that's how you turn them off. So you'll land, they'll keep spinning, and you have to hold in this red button to get them to stop. So let's go ahead and take off. I will time this flight, and I'll have it pop up at the end, just so you guys know how much flight time this has. There we go. So, okay, so this is, we got just a very light breeze. It feels like it's maybe coming from that direction. So that's why you can kind of see it drifting back a bit. But this is going to be in rate 1, and initially thoughts are very smooth on this one. Very nice and smooth. If we did want to turn off these lights, you see how on the bottom we've got the white in the front, blue in the back. If we want to turn those off, we click and hold in this left trigger button here. And you see them turn off. So if you're day flying, you don't need those. Save some power. That front light will stay on. See it there in the front? The LED light. So that's going to stay on no matter what you do. So let's go through the features here. So this is rate 1. Let's see how fast it is in rate 1. So this full pitch forward. It's actually pretty fast in rate 1. Really good throttle response. You can hear it there. Let's go ahead and do a punch test while we got it in this rate. We got a full charge battery. So just hover to punch. That's actually pretty fast. Let's see what happens if we totally cut off the stick. Whoa, so it starts to fall. The propellers are actually spinning a little in the air, but they're spinning so slow that it won't really come down even. Anyways, that's rate 1. Let's see what our yaw is like. There's a yaw. Now let's see what happens if we switch into rate 2 while we're yawing. I think this should have a faster yaw. So there's 2 rates in this, and that's by just pressing the quick press on this white trigger button. So yawing, quick press, look how fast that is. So that got it a lot quicker, and we even have a faster, that's pretty darn quick, man. We even have a way higher pitch. Woo! Yeah, so way faster everything. We got a higher roll and pitch angle. Awesome. Okay, so other features this thing has, I'm trying to remember. I think one of these buttons is used for the camera, if you have their camera thing, and then one's flipped on the right hand side. So let's see which one's which. Okay, that's a flip. So you can flip with this brushless quad, and it flips pretty well. So you have to be holding in the button and then go in the direction you want to flip. So for example, I'm going to hold the button in and press forward for a front flip. Alright, cool. So give it a little throttle punch at the end just so it doesn't drop and hit the ground, but it does very well. It's going to slowly drop if you don't give it a little throttle. So pretty awesome. This thing, you know, there's no GPS in this. I don't believe there's any like compass feature in this. So no return to home, just a fun little flyer, you know, to have fun with, and it can go pretty darn fast. Let's see how fast we can get this thing going. Wow, so it will drive itself into the ground on rate 2. You can see that. Let me go back and do that again, get some height, full pitch forward, and then full throttle. So full pitch forward and full throttle. So eventually you can see how it will go down. Let's see if it does that in rate 1. Full pitch forward, full throttle. No, it'll actually go up in that rate, so you don't have to worry about it there. Look how fast this thing is. Whew. This kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you remember the JGRC X1 I did a review on. That thing was super quick, kind of like this one is. But this one doesn't have any yaw problems. The first generation JGRC X1 had that yaw delay. Look, this one is instantaneous. So no problems with any kind of delay here. And you know what? I think that's pretty much all the features this one has. Unless you have the aftermarket camera and you connect all that, you don't really have any more features with this one. So let's just go ahead and blast it, fly it around. You know what I want to do actually is let's get up here and just see how stable of footage we can get. I'm gonna go into rate 1, and I will have this up on the screen. I will go ahead and have this camera. I'm just gonna try if I can do the best stability of filming I can possibly do. This is gonna be facing the sun, so sorry about that. But I'm just trying to keep it pretty stable, not really, you know, touching the yaw stick much. There we go. So fully off the sticks. Looks like it's wandering back a little bit, so you could trim it if you wanted to. You go ahead and trim it forward a little bit. There we go. So you can judge for yourself how you think that looks on the video. It looks pretty stable to me. We'll see how the video is up on the screen. So I've been going in and out with that video. Let's try to do like a low kind of flying, fast flying with the video, see how it looks. This thing is really smooth, man. Really impressed with the smoothness of this. I like it. Nice. Everything's really coming together on this one. Again, doesn't have those features like smart quads do, but this is MJX. I believe this is MJX's first brushless quadcopter, and they did a really good job with it so far. Only thing I'm a little worried about is that dropping out of the sky, and I'll give you an example of that. Let me go ahead and hover it here. So that's kind of why I don't want to do a range test on this one, in case it drops. There's some people over at the other side of the park. I don't want to drop on them, but let's just hover it and then watch this. I'm going to switch the controller off. Don't want to break it too hard. So I'm just going to hover right above the ground, and let's switch the controller off right now. So I just switched it off. Boom. So you see how it just shuts entirely off after like 1 second. So I don't really like that, but when you do switch it back on, it binds up nice and quick, so you can launch again. Go ahead and turn off these lights off again. Okay, so I'm just going to zip around in sport mode, which is like rate 2. See how incredibly fast we can fly. The camera is going to be facing the ground. You'll be able to kind of see. You know what we'll do? Since I'm going to fly really fast, let's do this. Let's grab this camera and let's tilt it forward a little bit. Watch this. You're going to be seeing the props, but check this out. Now you should be able to kind of see the horizon a little better while I'm flying super quick. Yeah, this thing has a crazy angle. Woo! Oh! Almost hit the ground there. So that's what you got to be careful of. Be pretty high if you're going to go in rate 2 and fly fast like this. Full stick, because it will hit the ground. But it is fast, man. This thing is quick. Woo! Really quick. And fun. This is the most fun I've had since like a race quad or the X1 I reviewed a while back. Really quick. Gonna go back into rate 1 and just fly fast, but a little bit more controllable. See how quick this thing is. And so if you do need to save yourself, it will pick up. Cool. Wow, it does get the pitch angle. It gets pretty high even in this mode. Okay, now it's actually going down. If I'm full throttle and full pitch up, you see how it's going to drive itself into the ground? And that's probably because the battery is getting weaker. So it will also do that. But I'm just flying like crazy. Pretty satisfied with the battery life so far. Wow, this thing is really easy. Whoa, and look at this. The controller is telling me that it's low voltage. I'm hearing beeping, you hear that? That's a great feature. So there is some kind of telemetry between the controller and the craft telling it that it's low voltage. Just gonna fix this camera back straight. So check that out. So the lights are blinking, even if you turn them off, they're gonna blink and low voltage. And I'm just gonna fly it until it absolutely has to land. And we'll just see what happens at the low voltage, if it has like a cutoff or whatever it does. But man, really impressed so far with this thing. Looks like it needs a little trimming once in a while. Gyro might get off a little when you're flying fast like that, but not bad at all. That's full hands off right here. Let's just hover it hands off. Let me get it just level, straight. There's just a slight little breeze, and let's just see how it is. So not the best, but it will hover. It's a little bit touchy to hover. Let's try that again. Yeah, so it's gonna drift a little. Let me try to trim it forward a little bit. There we go. There's a decent little hover after you trim it out. Just going up a little bit. Well, we got it here. Let's just do a close-up shot of it before it dies. Really silent too. Kind of reminds me of, remember the X1, how silent that one was. It's because it's brushless, and these I believe it's using the same propellers as, say, like the Hobson's H501s do. So really good little props. So we got lots of time to come and land after it starts warning us. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have plenty of time once you hear your controller, and that's a really good feature. If you hear this controller beeping, you know, okay, you're getting low, come in close, and it's giving you plenty of time to come in close. I'm just gonna hover here until it does a forced landing. It looks like it's getting close. Throttle's all the way up. Let's see what happens. Throttle's all the way up. It's getting weak, and then hopefully, yeah. Okay, good. So it does shut off the motors. Excellent. Awesome. Let's go ahead and stop this recording. Okay, well that was cool. Let me go ahead and turn off this controller because it's kind of annoying. But anyway, guys, that was a great test. We got to see how the MJX Bugs 3 really performed. I think I put it through all of its paces, all of its capable paces. Oh, one more note is, since we're using these landing gear here, because we're using a camera, you can go ahead and take off these arm landing gear. And this was, I actually weighed the landing gear on here after I took off all the screws, put all the screws on the scale, plus the landing gear, and it was 12 ounces. I mean, 12 grams. So take those off if you're going to use these landing gear and save yourself about 12 grams, because you are adding a bunch of weight with the camera. Anyway, guys, little pros and cons. It looked like maybe the gyro stability, the accelerometer, gets a little out of whack if you fly super hard, but that can just be trimmed out, no problem. You saw how good it was hovering afterwards. It seemed to me like it had great flight time. Again, I'll have that pop up on the screen and some words here on the screen to show you what the flight time was. It's got great lighting, brushless, very quiet, and it seemed to last very long. I guess the only con would be that it doesn't have any smart functions, but you know what? That's not what this one's for. This is a budget little quadcopter, brushless quad to have fun with. You could probably put like an FPV system on this, take off this camera, put an FPV camera on here, and practice FPV racing. I don't see why not. I didn't get to do any, range tests because I know this thing drops out of the sky when you turn off the controller, and there's some people over there like I mentioned, so I didn't want to drop it on top of them. Anyway, super impressed. I think I'm trying to think of anything else I can think of for this as far as the pros and cons go, but really well done for MJX first brushless quadcopter into the market. As far as I know, it's a great quad. It also has this easily removable top that's not going to come off unless you pull it off. So I'm very impressed. This one definitely gets a thumbs up in my book. And I'll have the links to this down in the description, and also the camera if you're interested. If you like how the camera looked, how the quad's performing, I'll go ahead and have those links down in the description so you can check that out. Anyway guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.